Okay, so these are going to be my first impressions of the new Affinity Designer app for iPad. It just came out. I'm very excited. We've been waiting for a fully featured vector editor on the iPad for a long time, and I haven't opened it up yet. And so I'm going to open it up now and kind of go through it with you guys and see what we have here. See if it's as great as we've been hoping. So this is the icon right here. It just looks like a zoomed in version of the Affinity Designer icon on desktop. I'm just going to go ahead and hit it and see what happens. Okay, it looks like it's fully loaded when you first get it, which is nice. You don't have to worry about any of the assets having to be downloaded afterwards, which some apps do. And it looks like the opening interface actually has some tutorials, which is awesome, so that you can get started learning some samples so you can actually break apart and see what's been done. And Affinity has always been good about providing samples which are able to provide you with inspiration and see the way that other artists have done their work. And then across the top it looks like we have a plus icon for adding a new project, a help icon, which will pull up the tutorials as well, and a settings icon, which will pull up a set of preferences. Looks like we've got an undo limit, which is currently set to 128, which seems like a lot, but if you have to go way back with some path editing, you might need more than that. Autosave interval 300. I don't know if that's seconds or if it saves every 300 actions. I'll have to learn more about that. Automatically update help. That seems great. To keep the help up to date. Automatically lock the background layer on import so that whatever you bring in doesn't get edited. Import PSD text as text, not pixel layers. Well, that's great. That's an option. Looks like it's turned off by default. I'm going to turn that one on because I would want the text to be editable if I brought in a PSD. Show tutorials and samples, so you can turn that off if you no longer want that to show up on your home screen. You won't need the tutorials after a while, or maybe the samples you don't want to see anymore. Dither the gradients, that's great. Show touches. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on so that you guys can see where I'm tapping, and I'm not sure why you would want to see that, but it looks like we get this little blue circle showing where I'm tapping. I mean, it's great for screencasting, and I guess there are a lot of gesture-based controls in here, so you might want to be able to visually see what's happening with your gestures. Language default, which is English on my iPad, and default save location is on my iPad. Looks like I can choose iCloud Drive, and I imagine if I had other services hooked up to my iPad here, they would also appear, but I haven't tried that, so I don't know for sure. There's some interface options. You can change the level of background gray in there, so that's probably similar to what you get on Affinity or on Adobe, how much gray you have in the background, how dark or light it is. Left-handed mode, oh, that's awesome. I am left-handed, so I'm definitely going to turn that one on. And that's just the kind of detail that Affinity puts in. It's something like a left-handed mode, thinking about those of us who don't write the way the rest of you do, which is really important if you're going to be using a stylus like the Apple Pencil a lot with this application. Show selection in Layers Studio. I'm not quite sure what that means yet, but I'm assuming that it's going to show what you have selected inside of your Layers panel, which Affinity calls Studios. I'm going to turn it on. On-screen modifier keys. I'm going to turn that on for now because we're screencasting, so it seems like we would want that in there. Text endpoints, lines endpoints. Yes, that's great. Show the undo and the redo buttons. Yes, I would like to see those, I think. And maybe I'll come in and change a lot of these things later on as I become more familiar with it. Color, looks like we get a lot of standard color options here. I'm not going to mess with them right now. I'm just going to leave them on the defaults. Tools. Alright, create text with blend gamma. I don't even know what that one means. Nudge distance. Okay, that's good. So right now it's set to 1 pixel, and modifier nudge distance to 10. That's really standard in vector applications, so I'm going to leave it alone for now. That's kind of what I expect it to do. Select objects when intersect selection marquee. Okay, so this is one thing that has always been different between Affinity Designer and Adobe Illustrator is Illustrator will pick up anything when your selection marquee touches it, and Designer has always had it, so you had to cover the entire object to get it to pick up. So it looks like you can choose whether you want to cover the entire object or whether you want to just touch it and hit it. I prefer the entire object, so I'm going to leave it on that. Synchronize tools between documents. Yes, that seems like a good option to keep your tool settings from one document to another. Allow canvas rotation in all tools so that you can spin the canvas. I'm assuming no matter what tool you're using. I don't quite know. That's probably unique to working on an iPad, and so I don't know what I'm going to prefer yet, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And touch for gestures only. I'm not going to turn that on. I don't have an Apple Pencil with me right now, and so I'm not going to be just using the Apple Pencil for tools. And move tool aspect constraint. Let me just look at these. Always constraint based on selection. Whether or not it constrains to proportions. I'm going to leave it on the default for now until I know more about it. And then fonts. Looks like you can actually load in fonts here, which is amazing. That's something that has kind of lacked in iPad design tools, is being able to load fonts, especially if you aren't a member of Adobe's Creative Cloud. And Assembly just recently added support for this a couple months ago, and so it's great to see that that is going to be an option here in Designer as well. Alright, now let's actually get to the fun stuff. I'm going to start a document here, and it looks like once we hit plus, we can start a new document, open from cloud, import from photos, or a new project. For right now, I am just going to go ahead and open a new document. Looks like we have a lot of our standard options. We can choose what type of a document, web or device, we want to do. iPad 9.7 is what mine's defaulting to, and it's probably because that's the document that I'm on. And we can choose what our units show up in. And I'm going to leave mine to points for now. And looks like we can edit with a calculator, which is pretty cool, the constraints on our document. We can choose whether our background is going to be transparent, and we can choose whether or not we're going to create an artboard. I do want an artboard created, so I'm going to go ahead and select that and then hit OK. Okay, so it took just a second to load up there. I'm going to look at what is going on here. Okay, so this is interesting, and I'm assuming that this is because I am left-handed mode, but you can see that all of the tools are over here on the right-hand side, which is not what you're probably used to from the desktop version, and then all of the panels or studios are here along the left-hand side. Alright, I didn't know that that would make an adjustment there to how it looks. I thought it would mostly be for the actual creation using a left-handed stylus. Interesting. So, just looking around here, looks like I'm going to go ahead and jump out of the document, and let's see how we do that. Looks like maybe that button. Yeah. I'm going to jump back into preferences, and I'm going to go to interface, and for now I'm going to turn off left-handed mode, because I think most people will be using it in right-handed mode and are used to having their tools along the left-hand side. Okay, so now this probably looks a little bit more like it normally would. I'm just going to look at what the options are that we have here. So we've got some document options under this little document symbol, which is kind of what you'd expect. Yeah, snapping is definitely something that I want turned on. Enable snapping. I'm not going force pixel alignment for now, but if I were doing something for the web, then I would probably force that. Under it, I'm just going to leave the regular snapping on. Go ahead and hit done. Oh, this is where I can come to place an image, set up my guides, get assistance. Awesome, make new artboards. Okay, under this little 3-dot menu, I'm seeing a lot of the what you might think of as the edit menu options and the control panel options. So we've got all of our Pathfinder tools over here, all of our clipboard tools up here, change our insertion. It's going to be really interesting to kind of see how Affinity has chosen to handle a lot of these things, because we're so used to using keyboards when we're doing design work that not having one is going to be a really interesting experience. Do a lot of our operations here, and then we have a fill mode, which is, I'm not even sure what that is. I haven't used that before. Okay, so we've got our standard personas from Affinity up here, which is unique to working in Affinity's programs, is to have these personas. So we've got vector and pixel, and then the export persona. So if you've used Affinity on desktop, you're familiar with those already. So it's nice to see that those have carried over. One of Affinity's huge strengths over Illustrator is really its pixel perfection performance. So it's good to see that that has not been lost coming here to the small screen. Alright, so let's get some shapes and see what we can do here. Looks like the shape tool is near the bottom here. So we've got rectangle. If we hold down on it, we get the entire selection. Alright, choose the star. And if I drag out, I'm getting it. And you can see I'm not getting constraints here. I think there's a way to do that. Let me hold down a finger. Okay, so if I hold down another finger on the board, I'm getting the constraint control here, and if I'm just dragging, I can then morph the constraints as I wish. And it looks like it's pretty important that you let go of the correct finger first, which I guess is the finger that you're dragging with. Otherwise, you do get a warped option. Let's see. Okay, so down at the bottom is the delete key, so if I want to get rid of that, I just hit delete. Awesome. Oh, yep. So then I gotta switch to my move tool, and I can move that around, and you can see the snapping took place there as I hit the center lines popping up, which is great. Okay, what can I control here? Looks like this circle, I think, is the color options. And yeah, so I have the color wheel. You can choose, your gray sliders, your color wheel, your HSL sliders, RGB, CMYK, lab, the whole 9 yards there. There's a quick colors and a recent colors, and then looks like there's a whole swatches palette. Oh, great. That's awesome. Got stroke options down below. Change the point size of the stroke. If we click advanced, I'm assuming, yep, so we can change caps. We can change where the alignment is, so we can align to the inside or the outside. The middle, that is something that it doesn't seem like a big deal, but my main vector editing on the iPad has been assembly, which is awesome, but it does not have that option. And except they did update a couple days ago, so they might have just added it. I know they added some stroke options in the most recent one. We'll even have pressure options here. So we have Bezier pressure options, which is that's pretty good. So you can change the way that your stroke flows. And then down here's the all-important scale with object, or the draw behind. Scale with object is especially important if you're going to be scaling that object up and down, and you want the stroke to adjust at the same time. So it's nice to see that that has been included. We've got brush options here to adjust the stroke. Brushes have always been a place where Affinity has been great. Whoa, so many options. Okay, it looks like my undo redo keys are just down here in the right because I had them turned on. I'm assuming there's some gesture based undo redo options that I just need to watch the instructions to learn about, and then maybe I won't need those buttons anymore. Here's my layers panel or studio. And so it looks like we've got the layers options. Oh, that's the group. Okay, so the puzzle piece is the group icon, which is good to know since we won't be able to use the keyboard shortcuts for grouping. So it looks like we can add and delete layers. Great. Oh, and so here it looks like these are icon or symbol packs. Perfect. So they've added in Affinity's entire UI kit, looks like. And you could add others, I'm assuming, if you wanted to. Looks like this pin will pin things to the outside. And yeah, this menu will let you add in categories to your symbols. Cool. And this is okay, so this is assets, not symbols. I said the wrong thing. And this is symbols, of which we currently don't have any, but we could add one from our selection. Bring those in. We have an effects panel. Scale with object, I think that's important. You want your effects to scale most of the time. Gaussian blur. Okay, so once I click on the effect, then I actually get these down here, and okay, these are slide up and down or slide left and right will affect how much happens. Great. And then there's a preserve alpha, which is just a toggle. So it looks like basically all of the effects that you would expect to have are already here. And then you can save styles, which there's some that Affinity has already made for you. So that's great. Having object style control is a must when you're dealing with complicated documents. Okay, adjustment layers. Great. You could actually do some photo editing in here with adjustment layers just like you can in the desktop version, which is really nice. Although Affinity Photo, of course, is a much better option for doing a lot of that work. Having these available to you in Designer without having to switch out to another program just makes your workflow a lot easier. All of your text options are here. Doesn't look like they've added paragraph styles, which I don't think they even have paragraph styles in the desktop version yet. And that's one of those things that's just frustrating, and maybe once they finish up Publisher, they'll carry that in to here. Illustrator isn't great with it either, so it's not too surprising that we have trouble with it here, but that's something that I would really like to see. And maybe I'm just not seeing it here, but it looks like we don't have those, and that's just too bad. Okay, we've got all of our transform tools, so it looks like our ordering tools are along the top. We can change what's where. So if I, oops. Okay, so that's interesting. I was still in the Gaussian blur. So if I go to my effects and tap, I know how to get off of the Gaussian blur. So I can turn it off. Can I set it and then turn it off? If I give it some blur and then turn it off, it's gone. It's off. Okay, I'm going to turn that off for now. There obviously must be a way to leave that. Okay, so let's go back here and just star tool. Try another star. Change its color. And then we can see on these transforms, move it behind, bring it forward, all the way forward or back. We can do a rotation, looks like 45 degrees. And of course flipping. Alter the dimensions. I'm assuming we can do that by sliding here. Or by clicking, getting the calculator. That's great. These controls seem really good here as far as sliding and then having the precision to enter numbers with a calculator. You can even perform a calculation right there, which is something that is going to be just fantastic when we're doing isometric work. That calculator will be awesome. You can change where our anchor point is, and we have an alignment panel, which of course we're going to need a lot. And then constraints. Okay, so this is for Affinity's responsive design options. So you can actually set up constraints, which is really cool if you're doing app design in here or web design. You're going to need those. The navigator. Okay, so this is where we have our zoom control. I haven't even looked at zoom. I'm assuming out here I can do a... No, that draws another star. Okay, so I can change to 50%, 100%. And I'm assuming there's gesture-based way to do this, and I just don't know it yet. But, oh, okay. So that's working that time. Interesting. Okay, so I can zoom in and out. Or I can do a fit. Alright, change the canvas rotation, which is currently locked, but I could unlock it. And then rotate with 2 fingers. Great. If I don't like what I've done, I can just go straight back to 0 and lock it again. Looks like I can even do a split mode between pixels and vector, which is a really great option. I can go into outline mode, and I can change my main view to be any of those as well. Great. Some really good stuff here. And then a history panel showing everything that I've ever done and able to pop back to it. So just like you have in Photoshop, you're able to jump back through the options. Alright, looks like the tools are pretty standard. This has always been one of those things. If I go to the pen tool, working with Bezier curves on an iPad has always been kind of a challenge, at least for me. But it looks like we get the controls here, and wondering if there are modifiers. Okay, so holding down will let you modify single handles. Then I'm assuming we have to come back to the node tool to adjust individuals here. Okay, that one. Awesome. Okay, so there's a lot of options there for working with Beziers. We've got the pencil tool. I like that it pops up with the name each time, at least for now at the beginning. The pencil tool works like you would expect. The corner tool, come in and adjust these corners. That's great. Oh, yeah. I mean, live corners. Are such a great amount of control to have. And then we have the bake corners to solidify them when we don't want them adjusting anymore. Awesome. Vector brush tool. Works like you'd expect. That would be great when using like the Apple Pencil. The fill tool. It's like we can adjust the fill options. Transparency. Just transparency with shape across it. Vector crop. So we can take out part of it. Of course, all of our shapes, which are going to be crucial to it. Our artistic text tool or our frame text tool, so we have both. And then the eyedropper tool, which they're calling color picker, so I can come in and I can pick up whatever I want. There's auto apply and the point sample radius. Sweet, so we've got a lot of control here. Looks like there's a full screen option. We can click up there. Well, and so it looks like we've looked at every tool and every studio in the vector options. If we jump over to pixels, looks like we've got a lot of our standard options. We've got smudge, flood fill, pixel tool. Not sure what that one does. We've got an eraser brush, paintbrush, move tool, of course, lasso selection. Okay, so we've got several different selection options there, and of course, smart selection brush. Flood selection. Looks like flood selection is just their name for magic wand tool. Color sample. And okay, so refine selection, which is quick mask, and then the color picker again. Alright, then of course the export persona opens up the history panel, I guess, so you can choose at what point you want to export from. You've got the slice tool and the selection slice tool. Slices, layers. You can make transformations from here. Awesome. So a lot of different options. Of course, we can also export the whole document here from the document menu. So there's a lot of different things going on in here. It looks just fantastic. Looks just like a fully functional version of Affinity Designer, and here on the iPad, which is what they promised us that was going to come. And I'm super excited that it's here, being able to work from the iPad and not having to go to a desktop all the time for fully functional vector editing is, I think, going to be amazing. Just super excited about this, guys. I will be releasing a full course on Affinity for sure in the near future. That will go up on Skillshare, so make sure that you're watching for that, and we will go over all of these tools in depth and how to use them for your design work. Alright, thanks for watching, guys, and we will talk to you later.